Let's start the show by talking about my new sponsor, Paloma Verde Store. Head over to palomaverdestore.com for all of your CBD needs. They've got the CBD gummies, topicals, the salve, sports cream, soft gels, the tinctures. They've even got pet products. I love this stuff. Having gone to a night shift recently and having trouble sleeping during the day, it helps mellow me out and put me right down whenever I need to get some sleep for the day, so I'll be refreshed for my night shift. And Carlos and his wife Vanessa are awesome people, so I highly recommend go over and check out palomaverdestore.com for all of your CBD needs. And when you get there, if you enter in the promo code FACTS, you get 25% off anything in the store. Plus, if you sign up for the email, you get an additional 10% off. So that's potentially 35% off on your first order. And all orders over $75 are free shipping. So go over to palomaverdestore.com and check it out. This episode will be completely taken out of context. Welcome to the Fact Check This podcast. All right, Fact Check This podcast, episode 62, and today I got Alaina back with me to talk about the Derek Chauvin trial and the results of all of that. So take it away. At this point, everybody kind of knows what the result of that was, and unless you just lived under a rock for the past year, you know what happened with George Floyd and everything leading up to this point. So kind of explain to us from a legal standpoint, what does the verdict mean? Because he was found guilty of second-degree murder, third-degree murder, and what was the other one? Third-degree manslaughter?
Second-degree manslaughter. Yep.
So how does that work? And kind of what are your thoughts on the verdict?
So I haven't really formed my own personal opinion on this because I find myself going back and forth, but I actually went and looked at Minnesota's statutes because I wanted to see how they interpreted his verdicts. So I ended up writing them down. So for the second degree murder charge, that one actually that one was fine. No, that's the one I understood. So the way that is phrased in their statute is that the individual causes death of a human being without the intent to affect death of any person while intentionally inflicting or attempting to inflict bodily harm upon the victim. So that's the one with the 40 years max. And that one, with the wording, I kind of agree with. He was in. This is where I go back and forth because it says no intent, but in Michigan, most of the murder charges need intent. So it's confusing to me, the wording, because I wouldn't call it murder, but the statute calls it murder type thing. The one that actually kind of bothers me the most is the third degree murder. It's also without intent. But the way I read it, I thought it made the most sense for it to be without intent to affect the death of any person causes death of another by perpetrating an act eminently dangerous to others without regard to human life is guilty of murder. But that's not how they interpreted that one. They used third degree murder for it to be without intent to affect the death of any person while attempting to commit a felony, which I found strange that they used it that way instead of the other. And then manslaughter, I completely agree with. It's the negligence where a person creates unreasonable risk and consciously takes chances of causing death, which with the little hold he was in, regardless of if he was on the actual neck or not, you're compressing the lungs. So I don't know how I feel about the murder charges, and I think it's mostly just the wording.
So I guess the kind of the issue I had with the second degree is it's hard to verify or prove that he was intending to do bodily harm. like I was surprised that they convicted him on that one, just because, the way that they defend and protect police officers, with it being a part of the training and what have you. I thought it would be tough to prove that he was doing that with the intent to harm him or injure him in any way. Like, it was just, I figured the way that the defense would lay it out is he was intending to restrain him to prevent him from harming himself or others. It wasn't Derek Chauvin was intending to inflict bodily harm on George Floyd. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I get what you're saying. I agree with you, but I rewatched the video just so it was fresh, and I think my perspective changed a little bit. Like, it just really rubs me the wrong way how, they felt him go limp. Like, he was like struggling and then he wasn't. And they felt that. I feel like they should have like checked on him instead of just sitting there like, oh, nothing's changed. Like, I don't know. It just really bothers me, just like the lack of human empathy happening there.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Watching the video when it initially happened, like, the longer he sits there kneeling on him, the more you can tell, like, Chauvin just really does not give a single solitary fuck what's going on with this guy. Like, I figured that when I said I didn't think that the second-degree murder charge would stick, it wasn't from in defense of Derek Chauvin. Like, what he did was absolutely horrific and heinous, and he absolutely deserves to be sentenced to the full extent. I had assumed that the defense would build the case against it being intentional and make it more of a training and a restraint thing. So yeah, I agree with you. Like, watching that video, it was absolutely heinous. Everything he did, like, he deserves whatever he gets and then some. But I just didn't see how they could make it stick. So, what are your opinions on the way the entire proceeding went down with because there was so much public pressure. There was like the jury was very public. There was all the Maxine Waters stuff. Like, what did you think of the entire proceeding as it played out? Like, the entire performance and just the whole jury theater that it went through.
I like we talked about last time with their civil case, I feel like there's a lot of public pressure. I don't think that's why they made him guilty, but I think it was a factor in why. I mean, literally the entire country was set on fire over this case. So I did recently see that like a jury member was found to be at one of the protests or something like that. So like, in my opinion, like that doesn't really surprise me because I feel like somebody who would have went to the protest would lie to be on the jury. That's not surprising to me. Stuff like that. Just, I didn't really watch the end. That's of the trial. The only part I really watched was the day they had the what's it called? The like, he's not the restraint specialist, but like the person who like is a specialist on.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
I don't know what he's called. But that's the only day I actually watched. And I mean, it was mostly like, would a reasonable officer do this? And would a reasonable officer do that? And yeah. And a lot of it was like, yeah, I thought he did was good. Or not good, but like allowed. And there's a lot of pushback from that. But.
Yeah, so with that being said, and with him actually being convicted, I'm still kind of in shock. Like I said, I totally agree with it. I thought he should definitely be convicted of as much as they possibly could. I was surprised that they went through with everything. But like I thought for sure third degree murder and the second degree manslaughter were slam dunks. I wasn't so sure about the second degree murder. But is this verdict going to make any substantial changes going forward with criminal justice reform, with the way officers handle these types of situations? Like, what do you think? What do you think this means? Maybe short term and possibly even long term for making meaningful change where this is concerned.
Realistically, like I think short term it's going to seem like they're making a difference and they're going to do things differently. There's more talk of ending qualified immunity and stuff like that, but long term I think we're going to stay in this repetitive cycle. Realistically, I would love to say that there's going to be substantial change. I think it's just, even since then, we've seen multiple cases where people have been shot by cops. That hasn't gone away. Like, nothing's changed really short term either. There's just more like legislative talk of like how things are going to be changed, what's not actually being changed, but it's being discussed. And I'm sadly not very hopeful for actual change happening now. I feel like if it was going to happen, we would be seeing it. I think it's just like kind of putting on a show, like, oh yeah, it's going to change, but it's not.
Yeah, there was I don't know if you saw it or not. There was a video of a guy in Louisville, Kentucky, that 7 Louisville Metro police officers basically threw him on the ground and beat the shit out of him because he was standing there like he was not doing anything. He wasn't fighting them or anything. They couldn't get the cuffs on him. Like, it looked like their own incompetence. They were getting the handcuffs hung on his shirt when they were trying to put the cuffs on his wrist. And they got mad at him and they threw him on the ground and started punching him in the face. Like, because they couldn't put the cuffs on him. He wasn't fighting. He was standing there running his mouth, but he wasn't doing anything. He was standing there with his hands behind his back, fully cooperating with them, and they just throw him down and start beating the shit out of him. Like, and I think that happened like right around the time of the Chauvin verdict coming down. Like, why does it take 7 cops to throw a guy on the ground and beat the shit out of him just to get handcuffs on him when he's not even fighting? Like, I'm kind of with you. I don't think anything's actually going to change. Yeah.
Well, like this morning on the news, I was watching, I don't know if you heard about the 73-year-old lady with dementia that like didn't really know she stole something from a store, but she stole it and she's walking home and they call the cops. The cops stop her and has dementia and she weighs like 80 pounds and they start like grabbing on her and pushing her to the ground. And all she's saying is, I just want to go home. I just want to go home. And they ended up cuffing her and like throwing her in the car. Like, she looks really scary in the picture they took of her in the jail. But I mean, she has dementia. I've had the crap beat out of me with people with dementia, but she was not being violent at all. She ended up with like all these bruises and stuff. And then there's a video of the cops later, like indoors in the cop shop or whatever. And they're like laughing about it. Like, oh, did you hear that pop? Ha ha. And they like never got her medical attention or anything. So that one made me want to cry because that could be anyone's grandma. And they're beating up grandmas.
Anytime video like that comes out, like, every motherfucker in the video should be fired on the spot. And this is something that I've talked about like several times, is it's not enough to fire them. It's not enough to like give them a slap on the wrist or a suspension or some shit. Like, strip them of their pension. Make them actually be liable for stuff. Because the problem that we run into is anytime one of these police officers does get held responsible, found guilty of something, or they have to pay damages. They don't actually pay it. It's all taxpayer money that funds that stuff. So like it doesn't, there is no negative effect for any cop at any time ever. No matter what they do, they're never going to actually have responsibility for it. Like they're always going to be protected somehow.
Yep. I don't know. Like they need either more training, a different type of training. Like I used to work in mental health, and like I've had the crap beat out of me by someone much bigger than me, and I couldn't do anything. Someone pulled him off me, but like we couldn't fight him back. Like same kind of violence. We couldn't even cuff him. Like we just had to like get him calm and medicate him. Like it's just, I don't know, just being on the end of like having someone being violent towards you and not being able to violently react. Like I'm not really sympathetic for the person that decides they need to violently react to a 73-year-old woman or somebody who's mostly cooperating just because they're getting frustrated with them and they decide they can call it resisting because it's not going how they perfectly plan.
Well, that's like before we did this, you suggested that I should watch the George Floyd body cam footage again. Like I had watched it when it initially came out, but it didn't really strike me as much then as it did rewatching it today. But they ran up on his car with guns drawn immediately over a fucking counterfeit $20 bill. Like that officer immediately ran up on this guy holding a gun, pointing it at him, and screaming and just cussing him out up one side and down the other over a counterfeit $20 bill. Like their default response to every situation is to go in with guns drawn, screaming and acting like an asshole. Like no wonder every situation ends up getting escalated. They escalate it right off the bat before they even have a chance for it to be anything other than that.
Yeah.
Go.
What bothered me the most about that is like he comes up with the gun, he's yelling at him like, fucking do this, fucking do that. And like he's like, put your hands up. He has his hands up and he's like, put your hands on your steering wheel. He does it. He's like, put them on your head. And it's like, okay, where do you put your hands? Like you're shouting random orders at him. He's trying to comply. He's trying to talk to you. He's just voicing to you that he's scared because you're pointing a gun at him. Like he's like, please don't shoot me. And I don't know. It just started out bad and he was compliant through that. And you can see he goes and he sits down and he's talking to the officer. He's being fine. And then they like drag him to the car and he like buckles down a little bit. And like, that's where the shit show started, was there. And like in the original call, they said he was drunk. Maybe he was, maybe that's why he buckled down to the ground. I don't know, but the initial response over a counterfeit $20 bill is insane. And I'm very tired of people justifying that, like, well, then don't break the law. Well, like, I don't care if somebody used a counterfeit $20 bill. That's not a death row offense. I don't care if somebody did drugs. That's not a death row offense. So if it's not a death row offense, there's literally no reason for somebody to be killed at the traffic stop.
Right.
There's no reason for anybody to be killed at the traffic stop in general, because you have the right to due process as an American. You are innocent until proven guilty. Nobody seems to remember that anymore. So it's no matter what, if you're killed at a traffic stop, unless you're like actively trying to kill somebody else, I'm not going to defend the action of that.
I don't understand the purpose of traffic stops at all anyway. The entire process could be completely automated and completely eliminate any officer to civilian interaction whatsoever. Like they can set up outposts and monitor, and I mean they do it in big cities anyway. They have the speed traps with the traffic cams and stuff that you get an automated ticket for running a red light or for speeding in certain areas or whatever. Like everything involving the police in those situations could be reduced to a completely automated system that doesn't require them to have person-to-person interaction. And if you can reduce the number of interactions that they have with people, by default, you reduce the number of times that we have these sorts of situations. Like, and what's somewhat of a rhetorical question, but at the same time, maybe you do know, like, what is the standard operating procedure for a police officer when they're approaching somebody's, vehicle, or, in the George Floyd case, like when they're approaching somebody in that situation? Is it to automatically assume that I got to run up on this guy screaming and cussing him out with a gun drawn, like for a fucking counterfeit $20 bill? Like, what is the training that they're going through that makes them think that this is the default response every time you have one of these situations? Because it seems like that is the default response. Like, all of the videos you see pretty much start the exact same way, with the police officers as the aggressors in the situation.
That's definitely how I see it too. It always looks like the police officers are being the aggressors, and maybe there's something we don't see, but I mean, you would think that it would be like priority for them to keep things de-escalated. Like, that should be their job, because I actually have a police manual for Michigan. I don't have it on me, but I could tell you what procedure is, because I ended up getting that for my criminal law class. I could tell you what Michigan's procedure is supposed to be. But also, what you said about the automated thing is, I can tell you that when you get pulled over for some stupid traffic violation, most of the time I feel like they're looking to get you for something else, because I have been pulled over so many times. I have a clean record. I've never really done anything criminal in my life, and they run me. When I had my old Jeep, they would run me for warrants every single time. Like, you're not going to find anything. I've been asked to get out of my vehicle and go sit in the cop car while they ran me for warrants before. Like, they're just looking for stuff. Like, I've been told a headlight's out when my headlight hasn't been out, just to pull me over. Like, I don't know. That's where the quotas come into me. Like, they have to do tickets or something like that, because I don't understand why I'm being pulled over. You don't really know why you're pulling me over either. You just see a crappy car and you want to see if I'm a criminal or if I have drugs on me, and that's really all it comes down to. And that's
I think reducing the number of bullshit excuses that they have to pull people over and to create basically imaginary interactions, anything that can be done to reduce that is only going to be a net sum gain for everybody. Like, it makes the job of the police a lot more easy. It makes their lives a lot less stressful. And for the offenders, then we don't have to deal with sitting through a traffic stop wondering, how am I going to get harassed today? Because I've never been, okay, I take it back. I did once, got pulled out of my truck and asked to search the vehicle, which was insane in and of itself, like the excuse that the guy had. but like you said, they're using these as excuses to try to find other stuff and to try to basically generate revenue at our expense for breaking menial, nonsensical laws or regulations or whatever. Like, the whole thing is it's a rigged fucking game, and it's rigged against us. And I don't see how people can look at the system as it is and be like, yeah, this is a good thing. We definitely need more of these police to be out here keeping us safe. Like, keeping us safe from what? That guy who's driving down the street with a expired tag, I don't need to be kept safe from him. Like,
right.
He needs to be kept safe from the police officers who are going to drag him out of his car and shoot him because he didn't pay the $80 registration this year to get a new sticker. Like that, it's the dumbest shit ever.
It is. It is. I don't know. Like,
I don't see how you get pulled out of your car and made to sit so they can run you for warrants. Like, I'm a little rough around the edges looking. Like I can, and I'm also fairly abrasive, just naturally. So like I can see them wanting to harass me a little bit. I probably deserve it, but like what do they see whenever they pull you over? They're like, oh yeah, we're definitely gonna shake this chick down.
well, that time I wasn't even driving. I was at a gas station and he pulled up behind me and ran my plates and asked me to sit in his car. I was like, I'm just getting gas. Don't know what that was about. I don't know if I looked like someone they were looking for or what, but
the time I got asked to get out so that the guy could search the truck, he pulled me over for speeding. And he said, you know why I pulled you over? I was like, no, sir, I have no idea. And he said, well, you were doing 63 and a 50. I was like, the speed limit sign literally right there says it's a 60. And then he got all pissed off. And he's like, well, have you been drinking? And I was like, no, I haven't been drinking. He's like, you got any drugs or narcotics? I was like, no. He's like, do I need to search the vehicle? I was like, have the fuck at it. Like, do you want me to get out? Do you want to search my vehicle? Like, if this is the way this is going to go, let's do this. Like, I don't give a shit at this point. Like, it was like 11 o'clock at night and I was driving home from school or something. Like, I wasn't swerving. I wasn't speeding. Yeah. So, well, any other thoughts on, last point on the Chauvin verdict that I wanted to ask your opinion on. When I talked to the Unicorn Daddy the other day, we talked about it briefly. I love that dude. He's awesome. We talked about it very briefly. Do you think these charges stick long term?
like for Derek?
Yes.
Or like, are they going to appeal? Is that what you're asking me?
Yes.
Oh, I think they're going to appeal.
How long do you think it takes for that process to play out? I have some thoughts on it, and he had some thoughts on it, and so I can I'll give you our thoughts, but I want to hear what your take on that whole scenario is. Like, how long does this actually hold up?
Maybe a year. I don't know. Like, I definitely think he's going to appeal. They're probably going to do that soon. Like, that would make sense legally. But are you asking me like how long until they like tell people?
That's more what I was getting at. Yeah.
Okay. A while. I don't think it's going to be anytime soon. Are you like hinting at like, oh man, I want to know what you're thinking.
All right. So my theory is that they'll give it 3 to 5 years before they actually, I think they will. I think you're probably right. I think within a year and a half, they'll appeal. I think they'll give it 3 to 5 years before they let the appeals process completely play itself all the way out, and then I think he'll probably be acquitted of the second and third degree. I think they might let the manslaughter stick, and the Unicorn Daddy, he thought it would go for about 10 years, which I could see that, like that they would keep Chauvin in jail for 10 years. That way, when the appeals process has completed, they can drop the second and third degree murder charges and let him out on time served. And by that point, everybody will have forgotten about this entirely. And so then it can just like fly under the radar without a mass incident being, coming from it. So like, I don't think the guilty verdict on all 3 counts is going to stick long term. But I do think that they will stretch it out and make sure that they prolong a finalization of the appeals to a point that nobody cares anymore.
I agree with that. I feel like I don't know what the low end is for like his minimum sentencing for the manslaughter would be, but I could almost see that too, because 10 years would be the maximum. It's either 10 years or a $20,000 fine or both. Look that up. But I don't think he's going to serve anywhere near the time for the murder charges at all. At all. So yeah, I would say, I think 10 years is a lot, but it would definitely give people time to forget about it. So
the 10 years was his theory. I don't think it goes past 5. Like I think
I was thinking 3 to 5 once you started talking about what you're talking about. I see 3 years in prison. That's my guess.
Well, that means in 3 years from now, we get to revisit this and see what's going on, if he's still in jail or not.
Yep.
Gosh. Well, got anything else you wanted to talk about? How's things going with the blog?
I have not been active at all. I do not have time.
Well, now that you're winding down with school stuff, maybe you can get back to writing. I do enjoy your blog posts whenever you write.
Yeah, I haven't written one in like a month.
Time to get back on it. Got plenty of stuff going on.
That's true. It's true.
Well,
definitely do that.
Thank you for joining me. Thank you for the insight. Anything else you want to talk about right quick before we go?
Not that I can think of.
Awesome. Well, hope you have a good rest of your week. And I hope everybody listening also has a good rest of their week. And we will catch you next time.